Blog Talk Radio.
Down to sleep, lay me down. I pray my soul is mine to keep. My soul can never step outside this bed, never into all the evil. Now back from the dead.
Are you scared?
Easier.
The calling hours.
When there's no more room in hell, the dead will walk here.
They will say that I have shed innocent blood. What's blood for, if not for shedding?
Another episode of the Calling Hours Horror Podcast on Horror Society Radio. This is your host, the Head Undertaker, the Dead Man, Michael Jones of HorrorSociety.com and Living Dead Magazine. What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? We have an absolutely fantastic show for the evening. Tonight, we are going to have actress, producer, and writer Devanny Pinn and some of the crew of House of Manson on. Devanny Pinn is someone that I've been following for years. She was one of my first big interviews on HorrorSociety.com. She and I correspond on Facebook. I try to keep up with all of her projects and everything that's going on. So tonight, when we have Devanny on, we're going to be talking about her work in the genre, including such titles as The Lonely Ones of 2006, 12/24, 2008, Nude Nuns with Big Guns, 2010, The Black Dahlia Haunting from 2012, Dead Sea from 2014, and of course, we're going to be talking about House of Manson, which was 2014 as well. We will also be joined by Brandon Slagle and Ryan Kiser, as well as a show favorite, Max Wassa. So when we start the interview at 8:30, Devanny's going to come on by herself for a little bit, for about 20 minutes, and then the rest of the crew is going to call in, and we're going to talk about this fantastic movie. We are also going to be reviewing Scream Factory's special edition Blu-ray release of Deep in the Darkness, as well as Ambermoon Productions' release of Voices from the Grave. Was really, really surprised by Deep in the Darkness. This is another film that was released and shown on Chiller. Very high production values, very entertaining movie with a very dark atmosphere. Very enjoyable. We're going to get to the review of that Blu-ray at about 9:40 this evening. As far as Voices from the Graves goes, it features an original story by Gary Brandner, who was the author of The Howling. And this is another anthology. As I have stated before, I've been on a kick when it comes to covering anthology movies over the last couple of months. And again, here is another great independent horror film that's got a lot going for it, and we are going to touch on this film here in a few moments. In our Metal Blade Spotlight tonight, we are going to be featuring Entrails and their most recent CD, Obliteration. And to give you a little bit of background on Entrails, who we have played on the show before, they were formed in 1990-91 with the intention to follow the scene that Stockholm brought to light around that time with bands like Dismember, Entombed, and Grave. And they cemented the brilliant Swedish death metal sound from T. Skosberg's Sunlight Studio. Unfortunately, all attempts to record a demo at the time did not produce satisfactory results. In 1994, half of the lineup decided to move on and do other things, and by that time, Entrails were put to rest as an official band. Jimmy Lundquist continued writing songs in the following years, but even that was put to rest in 1998. In 2008, Entrails were suddenly resurrected. Lundquist found old Entrails recordings in a tape collection and decided that they deserved to be released as they should have been originally. With modern recording technology, the first two Entrails demos finally took shape. Vocal duties were eventually helmed by Jacques Svensson. Following the demos Reborn and Human Decay, Entrails signed to the German label FDA Records and released their debut album Tales from the Morgue in June of 2010. The album featured songs from both demos with a sound that had similarities to all those glorious Swedish death metal albums recorded in the early 90s at the infamous Sunlight Studios. All songs were newly recorded, and Dan Sueno was hired for the mixing and mastering process. After the release of the debut album, Entrails welcomed Ade Mitrioulis as the permanent drummer in the summer of 2010. In September 2011, the second album, The Tomb Awaits, was released featuring the rest of the songs from both demos, and also with some old songs from the past mixed with some brand new ones. FDA Records handled the European release, while Dark Descent Records from the USA did the album in North America. The reviews and the feedback on The Tomb Awaits was even more massive, and the album got maximum ratings on several bigger magazines and blogs. During the winter of 2011-12, the band negotiated with several labels about a new record deal. Entrails were officially signed by Metal Blade Records in March of 2012. They played numerous festival shows in the summer, like Party Sand and Summer Breeze, and started recording the album in September in Jimmy's own studio. The recordings were finished by the end of the year, and the material got sent to Dan Sueno once again for mixing and mastering. Raging Death finally got released in May of 2013. And if you were listening to the podcast back then, you know I have played the hell out of some Entrails on this show. After the release, Pontus Samuelsson replaced Matthias Nilsson on guitars, and the band became more focused than before. Jimmy moved his studio into the woodshed where it all began in the 90s. The new old surroundings inspired Jimmy to write material like never before. Several songs were written during the fall of 2013. One of the new songs ended up on a 7-inch release, Berserk, that was released in January of 2014 via Metal Blade. The B-side featured a cover song of Swedish heavy metal legends Heavy Load. Entrails did some shows in the UK, played great festivals like Maryland Death Fest and Stonehenge in the Netherlands, and released the Resurrected from the Grave demo collection in the summer. The album contained 2 demos from 2009, Reborn and Human Decay, in a nice package. Meanwhile, in Sweden, Jimmy worked for a few more weeks on his studio. Some more space was added so that the drums could be recorded easier, and by this time, Bloodshed Studios were complete. Rehearsals for the new album began, and recordings started on the 22nd of December 2014. The band finished the recordings mid-January, and once more, Dan Sueno mixed and mastered the album entitled Obliteration for a May 15th release through Metal Blade Records. So, we are going to play some world podcast exclusive music. Here it is, ladies and gentlemen. The name of the band is Entrails. The name of the CD is Obliteration. And the name of the song is Epitome of Death. just heard world podcast exclusive music. That was the band Entrails off of their upcoming new CD Obliteration. The name of the song was Epitome of Death. Don't worry, metal fans, you will be hearing a little bit more from this band right before we talk to Devanny and afterwards. But now it is time for some digital dismemberment.
Digital dismemberment.
And in our first digital dismemberment spotlight for the evening, we are going to be talking about Ambermoon Productions' release of Voices from the Grave. Horror fan Miles Brandt finds a mysterious book of horror tales. In an old bookstore, he reads All Hallows Eve. A vengeful ghoul makes a Halloween night visit to the one responsible for his death. Invitation has Len Krager going to a bizarre party that may turn out to be his last. Repossessed has Jeff buying his dream car, only to find out that the ghost of its former owner haunts it. Filled with atmosphere, suspense, and terror, Voices from the Grave will keep you on the edge of your seat. And as I had mentioned earlier, over the last couple months, I have been on an anthology kick, and I've been very disappointed with a lot of stuff that I had seen coming out. However, I will say Voices from the Grave is one of those films that definitely leapfrogged any possible disappointment that I could have had. The film is from filmmakers Richard Stout and Lawrence C. Holloway. It is a 3-tale anthology, which is pretty cool, which gives each story enough time to develop its plot and what's going on. One of the stories is a piece from horror writer Gary Brander, who, of course, was the author of The Howling. Just so it's clear, spoiler alert for those that are listening. The film starts off with a gentleman going into a bookstore, and he talks to the shopkeeper, who is played by Scarlett Fry, who's been on the show before. And he's looking for something horror. He wants some horror fiction. The shop owner recommends several authors. Stephen King and H.P. Lovecraft, immediately pop out. But the guy says he wants something different, something a little bit more obscure. So the store owner sends the gentleman off to the horror section, and a book falls off the shelf. And the guy bends down and picks it up. And the name of the book is Voices from the Grave. The first tale is entitled All Hallows Eve, which was written by Mr. Stout and Joe Evans. It takes place on Halloween night, and the story starts off with Michelle Green, who plays Linda, is throwing a Halloween party. She has her best friend Robert, who's played by David Nelson there, and he doesn't seem to be too much in a partying mood. His younger brother is also there, Vince, who's played by Sean Ryan McBride. He winds up getting drunk, and makes a fool of himself, talking to different girls at the party and things like that. Vince wants to go home. Robert doesn't want to do it. Instead, hands him a jack-o'-lantern and the keys and tells him that he's just messing the night up for everyone, and tells him that the jack-o'-lantern will protect him and tells him to go. Well, Vince is pretty drunk, gets in the car, and some kids who are playing Halloween pranks throw a water balloon, hits the windshield. He winds up crashing the car and dies. So it cuts to 3 years later, and we see Robert at his brother's gravesite, and he despises Halloween after everything that happened. Linda tries to get him to come out to her new party, but Robert decides to stay at home and drink beer and watch horror films on TV. Since he usually doesn't give out candy or anything, his house is pretty much pranked every year. Soap on the windows, eggs, the things like that. But this year, more and more weird things start to happen. He thinks he sees his brother's car go by. He sees a jack-o'-lantern in the window. And it turns out his brother has come back for him. Robert makes every attempt to escape, and winds up, ironically, if you want to say it, dying in a car accident. Very well done piece. Not what you would call a very heavy effects gore sequence, but very well told. The pacing was very well done, and I liked the look of the brother coming back from the grave. Just enough of a wink, wink, nod, nod, but entertaining and creepy atmosphere. The second story is called Invitation, and this is the story that was written by Gary Bradner, who created The Howling. There's a businessman, Len, who's played by Michael Hanlon, and he's in the small town of Wildwood. And he's there to set up an office for a company he works for. But he finds the townspeople are really weird and strange, and he only meets one person that he really likes there. So after drinking at a local bar with Pete, who's played by Jonathan Medina, he's going to go back to sleep in his hotel room. But when he gets there, he finds an invitation to a party, and it's signed by someone who only signs his W. He decides to go. He arrives, there's a cocktail party, everyone's real nice, they all seem to know him, but he doesn't know who any of them are. So when he asks to meet the host, all the other people just kind of distract him, talk to him. There's a beautiful woman played by Sarah Masters who keeps popping up, but she disappears every time he tries to talk to her. So he talks with the other guests, and he keeps asking everyone who she is. And they all just keep trying to point him off into other directions. At the end, it's I don't want to give away this whole story, but needless to say, he meets a very gruesome demise at the back end of an axe. But really, again, a fun, entertaining story. Lots of creepy atmosphere, and I really love the axe strike, when he buys it. The third story is called Repossessed, and it's written by Mr. Stout again. Jeff, who's played by Chris Labadie, he's a guy looking for his car, and his girlfriend, Kathy, played by Mariam Sani, they ride the bus and stuff like that, but he's saving up his money for a car. And he comes across this great deal on a car. It's a 1986 Corvette. And the owner's only asking $700 for it. He calls the number, goes to meet the guy, and buys the car. He has a friend named Devin who's a mechanic, who's played by Corey Henderson. They go out for the meeting. He buys the car. And then just weird things start to happen. He's washing the car. The car goes into reverse and almost runs him over. His girlfriend winds up being mowed down by the car after she takes a picture and says that she saw someone in it. His friend who's fixing the car comes to a mysterious demise as well. Very reminiscent in a lot of ways to Christine, but I think, again, the atmosphere and the story behind the car being haunted is pretty cool. And then, of course, at the end you have the bookend tale. The guy gets the book, goes back to his car, and everything from the stories appears in his car. Really, really creepy. From what I've been able to gather, the film was made for a budget of $10,000, and it looks absolutely fantastic. I highly recommend checking this out. If you head on over to horrorsociety.com tonight after the show, I will post a link on where you can purchase this CD. I did not have any special features on my disc, so just strictly rating the film as an anthology-style film, I would definitely give it 3.5 out of 5 stars. It's definitely worth checking out. This is not a gore fest, so if you're going into it looking for buckets of blood and gore, that's not it. But if you're going into a movie looking for a story, something with substance where you actually pay attention to the characters and everything else that's going on, this is the movie for you. So make sure to check out Ambermoon Productions and give Richard Stout and Lawrence C. Holloway a look. I think this is a film that's going to do well. I'm very interested to see if it gets picked up for further mass production out there. So make sure to go out and get a copy of Voices from the Grave. Coming up in a few minutes, we're going to start our feature interview with actress, producer, and writer Devanny Pinn. And at 8:50, we will be joined by Brandon Slagle and Kiser, as well as Max Wassa, to talk about the film House of Manson. But before that, we're going to go into our second Metal Blade Spotlight for the evening. Once again, world podcast premiere music from the band Entrails, from their upcoming CD, Obliteration. The name of the song is Abyss of Corpses. And you just heard more World Podcast exclusive music from the band Entrails from their upcoming CD Obliteration. The name of the song was Abyss of Corpses. We will have more from Entrails after our feature interview this evening. But speaking of our feature interview, we are now joined by actress, producer, and writer Devanny Pinn. Devanny, how are you doing?
Hello. Okay, first things first. It's Devanny.
Devanny. Okay.
Yes,
Devanny. I've got it.
I am here. Hello.
How are you?
How are you guys doing? I'm jamming out to your tracks here. I found some new music I like, so thank you.
You know, Metal Blade Records is very good to us, so you know we have to play music by them just to make them happy for sponsoring the show.
Oh no, they're awesome. I'm sitting here, I'm rocking out, so now I'm all hard to do this.
You know, like I'd mentioned at the top of the show, you know, you were one of the, when I first got into writing for Horror Society, you were one of the first people that I ever interviewed, and I knew back then in 2009 that you were going to be a name that people were going to remember. You were going to be a name in the genre that people were going to be clamoring to see, and I feel like I was right. You know, here we are, you know, according to IMDb, 49 titles later into your career, you are the pinnacle of what a modern-day scream queen is. What are your Well, I mean, it's true. I mean, if you really look at it, back when I interviewed you in 2009, at that time, you had you had about 8 or 9 credits to your name, and like I said, now you're up to the half-century mark. You know, looking back on it, when it all started, did you ever think that it would progress to the point to where you are now?
Well, it's funny that I was one of your first interviews because you were one of my first interviews, actually, and
really?
One of my favorites to date. Yes. So we have that high five, and you are still here, so I am equally as happy to hear that you have progressed. And I'm having fun. When I did it, I really, I always took it seriously. I knew this was going to be my job and my career and what I was going to do for life. I didn't know if people would be receptive or not when I started, but that wasn't my focus. Honestly, I was just, I was learning so much, and I had been very sheltered, which is something that we talked about in our original interview, that I was brand new to horror. So I just fell in love with everybody, everyone, the culture, the films, and so for me, it was never about, you know, aggressively pursuing it as more as just enjoying and immersing myself, and that's what I've done. And I feel like maybe that's why some of the fans of the horror genre have embraced me, is because I'm not out there necessarily to make a name for myself or to be aggressive in that pursuit. I'm just loving being part of it, loving what I'm doing, and I'm a fan too. So I think that's why I connect with so many people who enjoy it.
See, and I think that's a key thing too. You know, I think people that are fans and students of the genre, you know, they kind of get it when they get into these films, and you know, sometimes you got to look at a role and it can be a little tongue in cheek, but you understand the history behind it. And you know, you've not only moved, you know, so far as an actress, but you've also become a producer and a writer. You know, kind of explain what led you down that path, and do you find any of those more difficult or challenging than being just an actress?
It is definitely more challenging. It's way more responsibility. I started in that because I was on set as an actress, and I just wanted to soak up every single person's job on set. Probably, but we'll talk about the lone ones a little bit. I annoyed the crap out of those guys in my first movie because I just wanted to know how everything worked all the time. I was just fascinated by it. So I quietly started learning a lot of different jobs behind the camera as well, just out of personal interest and growth. And when it came down the road towards my career, I've actually done way more films that are listed on IMDb, and they didn't make it to completion. And so I was like pouring my heart and soul into a lot of these projects that I just loved desperately and knew that fans were going to love when they came out. And the process of making a lower budget independent film, there's so many challenges. They were hitting snags, and I had a really bad run for a while where like I was doing like 10 films a month, and then 9 of them weren't getting done. It was like, oh my goodness. So I wanted to learn why. I wanted at first to have control over things I was proud of coming out, and then also just because I wanted to have that experience. So I started slowly and very quietly making movies as well, and I like it just as well as being in front of the camera. It's a completely different ballgame. I can see why a lot of people get overwhelmed by it. You basically have to sell your soul.
That's the truth.
It is horrible. It's a horrible, painstaking, not gratifying experience until you're done, and you know you're broke, you're starving, you hate the world, and you never want to do it again. And then you're done, and the next day you're like, that was awesome. We should do it again. And then you're hooked. And so now I'm hooked, and I love doing it. I love creating, and I like especially. I don't produce or write all the time, but when I do, it's usually because there's a story I want to see made or told, or something that's out there that I think could be tried a different way. And it's more about trying to find out how to get independent film out to the marketplace, which has been a challenge for a lot of filmmakers. So I wanted to tackle that and figure out what the halfway point was between what people now consider to be marketable and able to be distributed, and things that fans want to see that maybe isn't being made by studios.
Now, of course, in about 13 minutes, we're going to have everyone on from House of Manson, but there were 3 films I wanted to ask you about really quick. One of them was an uncredited role, but I remember when I interviewed you told me about it, and I think the fans would really like to hear your experience. You were an extra on Piranha, is that not correct, the remake?
Yes, it is. Oh my gosh. So in my travels, experienced some interesting people, and one of the unique, interesting people went through my IMDb and deleted a bunch of uncredited me in a couple of them, and then flat out deleted them from my IMDb. Unfortunately, one of them was Piranha. And the Piranha IMDb got messed with so much because even though there were some of us that were allowed to be credited from the bump that we got with a casting director, there was only about 10 of us. And once that happened and the film actually came out a year later and then was incredibly successful, everybody who ever even looked at the set wanted to be a part of it, and so they locked the IMDb. And unfortunately, that was when I was having trouble with my profile. So it is not there anymore. But yes, I was in fact in Piranha 3D, and it was a very interesting experience, to say the least. Definitely the largest set I think most of us had been on. It was shot in Arizona, and I went out just as an extra because I was a fan of Alex Aja, and I wanted to work on him. Of course, I love the original Piranha movie, so I couldn't get an audition for it for some reason, so I actually got booked on it through my modeling agent out there. And I came out, and I guess a couple of the people on the crew actually, at that point, believe it or not, how weird is that, were horror fans and had heard of me, and so they let me, hang out with the cast, the main cast and such, and Aja actually ended up seeing me when we were filming and picking me out. And he bumped me up to right smack in the middle of the massacre, which nobody else, all the other models, they were all Playboy models, so they were like, ew, Vlad, and me, and I was just in heaven. I was like, yes, we're in the middle of a massacre. It was so cool. So, yes, I got to be a wet t-shirt girl, which was on a stage in the massacre scene that went down, and I had an absolute blast. It was just blood and guts everywhere. Some of the most talented people on the effects side of it, Ving Rhames, chainsawing up fish. It was just so awesome. That was my first time working in the water. My favorite part of all of that was they had actually rigged the lake prior to us getting there, and they were servicing it. So, of course, I was nosy and decided to see how it worked. they had things injected into the bottom of the lake that were actual rigs that would create and release bubbles and blood stacks. So you would be placed on top of these marks in the water, and when they activated it, it would simulate like a vicious attack of piranha from air bubbles and the gags releasing blood. It was so cool. Some of the great stuff on that set, and a lot of fun.
Yeah, and it really made me, I know, in a roundabout way, it made me very happy when, at the time on your IMDb, I saw you were in it because, I'm not the biggest fan of remakes, being, a horror film purist myself, but I loved everything about that movie, and I tried like hell to find you in the film, and I couldn't find you, but I knew that you were in there somewhere.
I have
now,
like two or three spots that you can see my face, but unfortunately, when the movie got re-edited, it was supposed to be a serious movie at first, and the studio ended up choosing to go with a comedic route with it. So a lot of our scene on the stage ends up getting cut in favor of boobs, actually, which is okay too.
Now,
it was a lot of fun.
A lot of your films have buzz, but one in particular from 2012 that seemed to take the genre by storm, and I remember on Horror Society, it seemed like if I wasn't writing about it, someone else on the site was. And, of course, you worked with House of Manson director on that, Brandon Slagle, was the Black Dahlia Haunting. Kind of tell us a little bit about how you became involved.
Oh, hello? I think I'm losing you a minute there. Hello? Oh, hello? I don't know. Can you hear me?
You there, Devanny? Devanny?
Oh, I'm here.
I'm sorry.
Hello. Yes.
Yeah, I don't know what
now.
happened. The phones have been funny out here, but
okay.
Yeah, like I was asking is, what do you feel it was that just made that film so popular and made it pop with everybody?
So Black Dahlia is interesting, and actually, one of the contributors, Britt Griffith, who did House of Manson, will be on later to talk about that too. So Black Dahlia Haunting came because that was when my partner and I, Brandon Slagle, decided that we wanted to really try our hand at film. We had both done stuff behind the scenes quietly on other productions, and we're like, okay, we want to make a movie. Let's see what we can do. So of course we had no money, and we're like, how can we make sure that whatever we do actually gets completed and comes to an audience in the mainstream? So we actually, we worked in reverse. I saw a lot of other filmmakers, and they make their passion project, and then they try to get it to an audience. With us, we're like, okay, what do we know can get distributed? So we actually contacted a couple of distributors that I had become friends with or friendly with, I guess you could say, and they told us at that time anything paranormal. They said paranormal because Paranormal Activity had just had a lot of success, and so all the studios, everything was backing upcoming paranormal movies on a small budget. You could still get a good chance. So we're like, okay, we weren't really into the paranormal scene at that time at all, in fact. And Brandon and myself are very interested in true crime. So we were trying to figure out, Paranormal Activity had been done. Everyone was doing found footage or a single family in a house. What could we do something different? We can't really contribute on a small budget. We think somebody else has done that better. So what could we do fresh? And then Brandon brought up that Black Dahlia hadn't really been showcased in a lot of other films, and so maybe we could tie something in there. So we did some research, and it turned out that there were a lot of claims over the years of people who had claimed to experience Elizabeth Short, who was the Black Dahlia, or had some connection or fascination with her. So I actually had a publicist at the time who I did events and red carpets with here in Los Angeles, and one of the clients on the roster was Britt Griffith, who was the star of Ghost Hunters on Sci-Fi. So it was like, maybe I'll just text this guy, because we knew if we wanted to do it, we wanted to make sure that we would honor and respect paranormal fans, and we didn't want to do something that we didn't know about. So we ended up talking with Britt and forming a friendship, and he was advising us while Brandon was writing the script on the world of paranormal, what paranormal fans like to see, what spirits would actually do or interact, or how things, if we wanted things to be truthful. So the way it came to pass, we ended up bringing him in to act in it too, and it was his first role. So that kind of really helped us a lot, I think. The paranormal community was already very interested in receiving the movie because Britt, who was such a center point, especially at that time, with the paranormal community, were very anxious to support his now acting career. And for us, I think because it was kind of the first movie we were making, a lot of people were rooting for us and curious to see what we were going to come up with. I didn't know it was going to be as well received or popular, I guess, at the time. I just wanted to make our little movie and have fun. It's interesting with that movie specifically. Paranormal fans swear by it. I'm still doing paranormal conventions and such with it where they'll still play it and they want to talk about it and tour with it. Horror fans didn't like it.
Hey, a lot of people on Horror Society liked it because, like I said, it seemed like there wasn't a day that didn't go by that someone commented on it, someone asked about it. So I mean, it's true. I mean, if you go back and look at the archives, it seemed like every day there was something about that film. And, of course, that kind of ties into the last film I'm going to ask you about before we go into House of Manson. You know, again, you teamed up with Brandon, and, of course, in this one you worked with Ryan as well, and you returned to the water in Dead Sea, another one that just people seem to keep talking about and keep talking about it. You know, where did the concept for that one come from, and did you enjoy your return to the water?
Oh, man. So I'm definitely afraid of the water, so naturally we ended up doing a movie in the water. When we finished Dahlia and it came out with our distributor and it was successful for them financially, they immediately wanted to do another one, and they told us creature features would be successful. I'm like, darn it. Naturally, this would be a fish movie. I don't want to get in the water. So Brandon, who's brilliant, ended up knocking out a script in like 2 weeks, and we immediately found funding for it, which never happened, right off the success of Dahlia coming out. And like a month later, we were in production for it. It was very, very quick. Again, we wanted to do something that was different. We didn't know how people would receive this one. It's a creature feature for people who are not satisfied by maybe like the Asylum or the kind of the fun comedic versions of creature features out there. We wanted to try something different. We think Asylum does it the best that way, and so we wanted to honor that, and we did a very serious version of a creature movie with a creature being less prominent in it, and it was a lot of fun. I mean, the cast in it is awesome. We had a ton of fun doing it. The water, even though it's freezing, I tried everything in my power to I told Brandon, I was like, make it so I'm not in the water. So everybody else really gets in the water. I don't know if you've seen the film, you'll notice I run a lot in the desert, and there's a reason for that. It's because I was afraid to get in it. And we shot in a beautiful area. It was in Big Bear Lake in California. It's very film friendly, by the way, and it's gorgeous. A lot of the shots up there, all the boat stuff, is all up there. And we brought in some people that we had worked with before, and some people that I really wanted to work with, such as Chanel Ryan, actually, who's awesome. And it was a lot of fun, and it came out. The distributor scooped it right up as soon as it was finished and put it out, and that is, last I was told, that is their biggest seller. It did very, very well overseas, so kind of cool. We'll see.
Yeah, and again, it's definitely one of those movies that people were talking about a lot when it came out. Now, we're going to talk about House of Manson, and I believe at this time we are being joined by Brandon Slagle and Ryan Kiser. Am I correct?
Yes, sir. And Britt Griffith, I think. Hello.
Yeah.
Hello.
Guys.
How you doing?
This is Ryan. How you guys doing?
Hey, Ryan. How's it going?
Pretty good.
Ryan, are you hacking?
I am actually at Runyon. I'm officially that guy. I know.
For those of you who don't know, Runyon Canyon is a very popular spot for actors and other people in the entertainment industry to go hiking and be seen doing trendy stuff. So Ryan is currently promoting his movie while hiking at Runyon Canyon. He's officially the most Los Angeles person on this podcast.
I know. It's way too LA for me, actually.
And right now we're also being joined. We're being joined by Britt Griffith as well. Is that correct?
We should be, yes. Britt is the producer on House of Manson and also plays Lena LaBianca.
Okay, and now I believe that we are also being joined by Brandon, and I think Max Wassa is with us as well. Is that correct?
You got everybody. Hello, guys.
Hello.
Hello, Britt. So
Hello.
we have everyone here. Now, the first thing I want to say is, I've been following the details of House of Manson for a while, and while I will freely admit that I have not had a chance to see it yet, I have read just about everything I could read about it, and when I talked to Ryan earlier on Facebook, I'm really looking forward to reviewing it, but I still have a lot of questions. One of the things right out the gate that I seem to notice is you guys don't go the regular Charles Manson route where, it's kind of most films about Manson go on about the drugs and the sex and the partying and everything, and you guys kind of take the movie in a little bit of a different direction. I guess, Ryan, let me ask you first. You look at the history of Charles Manson, everything that's written about him, the interviews, all of that. How did you manage to spin that into the character that you played as Manson?
That's interesting. And I think Brandon and I struck a similar chord on this one when we were first researching the movie and talking about doing it. That the takes that I'd seen in the past have more or less portrayed the Charles Manson that we've seen in the media, which, is that crazy caricature of himself almost. So we wanted to tell more of the story that, okay, what were these experiences that got him to that point? And yeah, I think Brandon did an excellent job, having that tone in the film. Of because Charles Manson, I can almost guarantee, although who's to say because none of us were there, that he was not 100% crazy 100% of the time. Otherwise, he would not have these people, hanging out with him willfully, So. Yeah, we
you wouldn't think so.
More of a yeah.
Now, Brandon, let me ask you. When you started thinking about the film and went on to make it, was it always your intention to show Manson and his family in that different light? Oh, I don't know if he's here.
Brandon, you answer the question? Oh, he's not on. That's
he's not?
Oh. He's in the... Okay. Well, I can answer that.
Please
yes,
do.
Brandon and I were actually attached to act in a different Manson film years ago, and unfortunately it did not happen. They ended up making a different movie, but I'd always wanted to tell that story after doing the research. And Ryan has portrayed Charles Manson in the past too, so we can agree on that one. As far as this, Brandon did not want to do it unless we found the right angle. And just like with all the rest of our films, we wanted to tell something that hadn't been showcased in film already. So Ryan actually got cast in Dead Sea in that spot, so we could see if he and Brandon worked well together. and they did, of course, because they're wonderful. And so Brandon then started, now that he had the right Manson, started working on the right angle for it. And the angle was the story that he thought was the most interesting to tell. It was not sex, drugs, and rock and roll because it had been done already. And it was more interesting to showcase the person who started as some scrawny little kid who, was in trouble with the law and then ended up having these people follow him to the degree that they would do anything, including killing for him. And he changed the world. And we thought that was a more interesting showcase for a story.
Now, for each one of you, you know, the different roles that you played, of course, are all based on real characters. You know, how much research, and, you know, we can go in any order, whoever wants to answer first. You know, how much research did you guys go into for your characters, and, you know, how much creativity did Brandon give you, you know, for taking your characters in a little, like I said, you know, according to film, a little bit less traditional story than what is told? And whoever wants to go first, there are so many of you on it, whoever wants to take it first.
Well, I'll go ahead. And for me, it was I put in a lot of research because originally, like Devanny mentioned, I did play Charles Manson in a 2009 short film called Lie, and there was always anticipation that would be made into a feature film, which eventually it did. So I'd been researching. I'd been in anticipation of that. I had been researching Charlie Manson since about 2009, and just, you know, reading everything I could, watching any and every interview from, you know, with him or from family members, you know, things like that. Because he is a very complex, you know, study.
Now, and that was an interesting side question to that. You know, with all of the research that you've done, you know, you look at Charles Manson, and of course, you know, yes, vile person for everything that he did, but he certainly held a certain charm and charisma, and he's not a stupid individual. He's a very intelligent man. You know, how much do you feel personally, you know, is he really that crazy? How much of it is an act, you know? And how did you balance that playing him?
Well, yeah, you know, he definitely had the charisma, and a lot of it was the music, and a lot of it was, I feel, was just the time in history. There was a lot of people. Charles Manson wasn't the only like guru out there in the late '60s, you know. So yeah, he had that charm, and yeah, it was definitely something you have to balance with a character who is. And the thing is about Charles Manson, a lot of times in those interviews that you see, it's almost like he's on, like he knows the camera's on. He's almost a performer. He's performing for the camera. So you have to take some of that into account when you're studying like the source material.
Now, Devanny, you know, for you play the role of Susan Atkins in the film. You know, how much research did you do into her, and how much do you bring of your own into that character?
I did a lot of research, lots of research, because I was not only looking at Susan, I was looking at the whole movie and everyone else doing it too. So I was just overrun by Manson's family for months and months and months. We've seen every movie. We watched. We read several biographies. We scoured the internet for all the historical references, like that would name in crime scenes or things, facts, and then we read several people's interpretation of what happened as well. And for Susan, I have her complete life because she did pass away recently, so I have her whole life documented and accounted for. And she's an interesting person. She's one of the few that I believe was truly disturbed instead of enticed, and that was different to play. I played a bad guy. I played a killer in a variety of things, and it's always a lot of fun for me. It's escapism. It's I mean, that's why I'm a horror chick. I just love that. I love playing the bad guy. With Susan, it was different because I couldn't just do what I wanted with it. I had to honor what she did in the way she did it, the way she said it. I actually worked with Brandon a lot on my tone and my speech and placement. Susan is very soft-spoken, very introverted in her speech, and she barely moves her mouth when she does talk. And for me, I'm so animated, and my features are large, so it was very, very different just to take on a different person in that way. And also, it's I love the worst of it, you know, as far as dark material and murder. I like the worst stuff you can imagine, but when this is real, the fact that these are real people, it's I don't have much of a stomach for it at all. So to portray these people in the happy times is very easy. It's very seductive. It was easy to see why these people followed Manson and lived in this happy little world on their own. That part was easy. Portraying that fall into the other side and then enjoying what they did to these people. That was very hard, actually. And that's actually a good place to pass it over to Max, because she actually did a lot of research on the other end for that.
And that's the fun part about watching you in films is, like you said, you have that innocent look and quality about you, and to play the vicious killer or the diabolical killer. It's, do you find those roles to be a stretch for you? Do you enjoy stepping outside of your normal persona to play those types of things? Because it's very much against the type of person that you really are in life.
They're easily the most fun for me. I played everything. I played the victim, I played the bad guy, I played everything in between, and hands down, the most fun for me is to play the villain. I think because it's
issues.
Oh, hello.
I'm
hello?
Here.
Oh,
hello.
Hello. I did.
Is
I
this
get
Britt?
on air.
Hey, Britt.
This is Britt. Wow.
Hey,
Britt, you're here.
Brian.
I've been talking to myself for 15 minutes, and all of a sudden now I'm here. Sorry, continue, Devanny. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh, no, hey, what's up? No, yeah, this is a great place to pass to you, too. I was just talking about how playing the villain, and Britt, it was very interesting to me to play opposite Britt in Black Dahlia, because it was his first role, and he was playing a doctor in the first half, and if you haven't seen the movie, spoiler, in the second half he becomes the bad guy. And I watched him fall in love with not only performing, but is playing the bad guy too. He and I are equally yoked in that way, and I know what a thrill I get and what energy, and it's definitely, I think, my best work when I play the villain. And Britt is the same type. Ryan too, actually. Ryan is the same type. I guess I collect those. What do you guys think?
I think all three of us play Psycho very well. It's almost too natural for us.
Well, thank you.
Well, Britt, you play the role of Lino LaBianca in the film. As I asked all of them, how much research did you do into your character, and how much creative freedom did Brandon give you when it came to the character? Since, like I had mentioned, the film kind of goes off. It's not quite as explicit as other Manson films when it comes to the drugs and the sex and everything.
Right. Well, Brandon likes to yell at me, so I get no freedom. But my role was very quick. I just had to get beat up and killed. So my research was literally, I watched people dying and what they sounded like. What does a human being sound like when they're being stabbed to death? I watched some pretty horrific videos to figure that part out. I got it down. I did it on the first take, and Brandon goes, cut. Britt, can you not scream like a girl?
I've heard that on sets before. That's actually very funny.
So I had to add some bass to my scream. However, my first take, I did die like a real person dies when they're being stabbed to death, which is high pitched and girly, apparently. So so Brandon doesn't give me much leeway in this movie. I only have 38 seconds of screen time or something like that. So I didn't have to do much research for my part, which was good for me because this was my first really big producing movie that was, a low-budget period film, and Devanny and I literally, we didn't sleep, so all we did was breathe and eat Manson for 2 months. And then when it was go time, it was literally whatever Brandon needed, we had to figure it out. And on no budget, we were able to pull it off. So I really stepped back and I looked at this project and the amazing cast that we pulled together and the role and what Ryan was able to do. He scares me because he can play Manson and he can play Jesus, which I think he does both in this movie.
Well, thank you. I actually did. I did do that within like 3 weeks of one another. I'd played Jesus in a Lady Gaga video, and then 3 weeks later I was went from Christ to what a lot of people consider the Antichrist. So.
Right. And it's beautiful. It's beautiful to shoot in L.A. I mean, I honestly don't think with the budget we had, we could have pulled this movie off at the quality that it is anywhere else in the world except for L.A. And that is because we have such a huge pool of up-and-coming talent to draw from.
Yep.
That doesn't cost us $5, $8, $10, $12 million for 2 days. That we were able to Brandon was able to make a masterpiece on a very low budget, and I think as time rolls on, this movie will stand out.
I absolutely agree. Max, are you with us? Max Wassa?
Maxie.
Hi, Max. How are you doing?
Oh, I don't hear her.
Oh,
hello?
Maybe we lost her. Is Brandon with us now? Brandon's not with us. Who else is with us?
I don't know if you can hear me.
I am.
Julie Rose?
Hi, Julie. Julie plays Leslie Van Houten.
Oh, you can hear me.
I can hear you. Hi.
There you are, Julie.
Awesome.
I have to say, I think we've set a record for the most people on my podcast at one time. So if I have not spoken with you yet, please speak up because I don't know everyone's phone number personally.
Not yet.
Not yet. I'm getting there. Well, tell us a little bit about your role in the movie and how much research you did for your character.
I was actually really happy to be included on the movie. Initially, I was a little scared of it because I had, I think, a notion or like a idea about the family that a lot of people had where I didn't like them and I just thought they were, crazy, and I was afraid I wasn't going to be able to get to the core of who Leslie was and maybe why she made the choices she made, which ended up being catastrophic for so many. And I found that the videos that you would watch online where you actually got to see her interviews helped me more than anything. I read a lot of different information and there's a lot of conflicting reports, but just listening to her and watching her mannerisms and seeing kind of where she came from and her soul really kind of helped me to connect, and I hope that came across in what we did.
Now, of course, like I said, I think this is going to be one of those films, like it was mentioned before, this is going to be a film that people talk about for a long, long time. And it seems like the film has gotten tremendous critical response. It seems like when it's been shown, people seem to like it. Kind of talk about for each one of you, what has critical response been like, and what are the reactions of the crowd? What are you guys hearing from the people that have seen the film?
For me, it's funny because usually by the end of the movie and afterwards, like nobody wants to come near Ryan, which I think is awesome. And
yeah, it's a fine compliment.
Way to go, Ryan.
So
thank you.
For this one, again, it's usually, and I study the audience during and after because it's an important growth thing for me, and people on a technical way that they're responding when they're supposed to and how they're supposed to, and people overall have said this is the most realistic portrayal, that it has been received well by people who were kind of like what Julie was just saying, were a little bit afraid of the family, didn't want to support him or give him any press. We knew that that horror fans and fans of serial killers and such would seek out the movie, and that would be fine. But we wanted to make sure that there was a movie for the masses out there, because we feel like there really hasn't been. And so for us, and what's been most rewarding for me is to see people who are not fans of indie film, of Manson, of anything close to that, receiving the film as well as it is. Like our festival run, for instance, has been all mainstream festivals. None of them have been horror. And overall, people are either really afraid of the movie because it is so real, and a lot of the actors will tell you the same thing. You very much fall in love with these people and the time, and then and you kind of go on the journey with them. And I think that was unsettling for some people and a home run for others. So I guess we'll see. For me, I'm very, very. It's definitely the film I'm most proud of, and I'm just happy that it's getting out there as much as it is, and people are following it and cheering us on with it. So it's been really nice thus far. We'll see. Ryan?
Yeah, for me, I find it interesting because we've actually had a few sold out theaters, and and it's weird because you can actually feel the mood of the crowd.
Yeah.
Going on this journey. So the response has been pretty good for sure. Like Devanny covered. And yeah, we had our LA premiere here at North Hollywood Cinefest, and it was great. A lot of fans, a lot of just a good vibes the entire night, and it also became almost, it felt like a rap party for the casting.
Yeah.
So the response has been really good.
Yeah, what I've heard the most, I think. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, please go ahead.
This is truly, yeah. What I've heard the most from people is just how realistic it was, and how they were surprised that they actually could understand how people, maybe not themselves, but how people could go from, being in a family and having loving parents and ending up doing something so horrible. And they actually related to the people, some of them, and then they felt horrible when you watched the death scenes. They were so realistic, and people just felt it. People would tell me, like, oh, I could feel the stabs, like I empathized. It was horrible. And then you had this whole spectrum of people just really kind of leaving in shock and kind of really thinking back on the time. And to me, it was really cool to see that people really connected to it. Obviously, people felt bad about it, as did we when we took it very seriously, the whole situation. And it wasn't a B-list, like cheesy horror film, and we were really happy that it came out so realistically. So we're happy people felt that way about it.
Now, one of the interesting things, if you look back at the whole case from a historical standpoint, is you still to this day have people that feel, or people that will argue that, Manson did not send them to kill, or, these people were brainwashed. They did this on their own. Manson was the patsy. He was set up to take the fall. With all of the research that all of you did, do you guys feel that Manson was the one who set all of this in motion? Do you feel like any of them acted on their own, or that any of the girls were innocent of what they were accused of?
That's interesting. Ryan?
And Devanny? The thing is, I think that, and this is all speculation, of course, because that's the thing.
Sure.
With this is that there was so many conflicting stories, and it's in the late 60s. There's the free love movement and a lot of things going on, and we ran into a lot of conflicting stories when examining the source material. So that being said, I definitely think that Charles Manson had an influence over these people. They were young, impressionable kids, and he was kind of captivating to them. And he was convicted. So yeah, I definitely think, and that wasn't, yeah, and for me also that when I took it at a different point of view when I started doing this Charles Manson research. Wasn't my job. Hello.
I hear.
Hello.
Hello. I can hear you.
I don't know. It sounds like someone else joined us.
Yeah, and I didn't exactly make it my job of trying to figure out if Charlie was guilty or not. When I took on researching it, but based on the evidence that I've seen, it definitely seems probable, and he was convicted. So I was very interested in telling how he got there, though. That was the cool part for me.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Now, the other interesting side point is like you said, you look back at the time, you're talking about, the 60s and everything, and with all of the conflicting details and the stories, do you feel like if that had happened today, would Manson or any of the other people been convicted of the crime?
I don't know that they would have, honestly, simply because of the spotty evidence. It may not be that they did or didn't do it. It might be that there wasn't enough to convict them, but it would have been reasonable doubt, I think, just because.
Sure.
But then again, back then, police don't have a lot of the procedures that they do now. Maybe they would have found 100% solid proof where there wouldn't have needed to be several trials, like, for instance, in Leslie's case. I think, if the president had declared Manson guilty on the headlines these days, that would have been the end of the trial right there, and he would have gone free. That being said, I don't know if there's been a lot of cults since, if you think about it, and a lot of people who've done weird stuff, and would they be convicted of murder for life for leading a cult that did certain things if they haven't technically done it? I don't know.
Yeah,
I just think it's an interesting aspect to look at it from, because I know nowadays, especially in particular, Manson, he seems like he's always on the news. There's always something going on with him. We just recently had the debacle where he was going to marry that girl, and then he didn't marry the girl.
And
interesting question when you think about it, though. He's very protective over his image. Were you guys, as a production, ever called or consulted by his legal team or him in regards to how he was portrayed in the film?
Well, we know that his camp is aware of the film. His fiancée at the time, Star, she was aware of us and monitoring kind of what we were doing from afar, as well as some of the other family members that are still active. But legally, and the reason there's been so many Manson movies, convicted people are not able to retain rights to their story, nor are they allowed to profit from it. So that's why over the years, they can make whatever they want and say whatever they want about him. He can be upset about it and pull whatever favors he can from prison to handle it, but there's nothing technically that he can do for that. But we as a film, we are unbiased. It's more like a fly on the wall. Watch the events go down. We don't tell you to like Manson. We don't tell you to dislike Manson. We just kind of give you we take you through the times and the events.
No. This is
I think we were joined by one more person. Is this Brandon or Max? Did you guys call in?
I'm Britt. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep, we got you, Britt.
I can hear you.
Okay.
I know for sure I have Ryan, I have Devanny, I have Britt, and I have Julie.
And Julie, yeah.
There's a party on here.
All right.
Yep.
I have one more thing to add to the whole the Manson thing. One of the brilliant things that Brandon did, because honestly, Brandon, he obviously knew of Manson, but he didn't know the details of the story. So when he wrote it, he got all of his information from anything that was public, whether it was transcripts, interviews, trials, stuff. And so everything that went into that script was public knowledge, which our lawyer, Cheryl, advised us to do it that way. That would save us down the road of trying to get releases from real people. So the fact that Brandon didn't have any contact with anybody from the Manson family really made it easier for us on the legal front, and that's why it was kind of done that way.
Yes.
Not to mention, Brandon wrote everything that's in this movie is actually factual from the Internet. And the Internet's always right.
Everything is verifiable.
So there's nothing wrong on the Internet. We all know that.
Absolutely, 100% correct.
Now, and again, interesting question. He is, there's been talk about him coming up for parole, possibly being released from prison. Do you ever see a day that Manson is paroled before his death?
No, I don't.
He's still too powerful. When we were in pre-production and we were doing the Facebook stuff, I actually had someone from the prison guard people reached out to me, sent me an email and said, hey, be careful, because the family's still out there. So Manson is still pretty powerful, even in as crazy as he is now, but they still think a lot that's an act. And here's another little tidbit that how good Ryan was at being Manson. Debbie, did you talk about the morphosis from the cast and how they bonded around Kiser? And how we didn't talk.
People are working harder than
that was really powerful. Yeah.
Yeah, that was something else actually. We all got very close very quickly.
Right, yeah, and literally the cast, Devanny or I would walk in and say, okay, we need to do this, and they would all look at Manson. They would all look at Ryan for permission to do whatever we were asking. It was the weirdest thing.
Yeah.
Really? Oh, dang it. I didn't even notice that. I could have taken advantage.
Yeah, there's a reason of pulling my hair out.
Yes, you could have.
Yeah.
Debbie and I had a long talk one night about how
Can
to
we have
deal
a
with
redo? Yeah.
Well,
I'm kidding.
that was one of the interesting questions I wanted to ask you, Ryan, because, you know, again, from everything that I've read, you know, trailers that I've seen and things like that, you definitely put in a powerful performance. And, you know, you talked about the research that you did. And one of the things that I can equate it to, at least in my mind as someone who reviews film, I look at the way that you prepared for the film very similar to how Heath Ledger prepared for his role as the Joker in the Batman movie. You know, very powerful figure, you know, a very dark figure. You know, when you got into that mindset of being Charles Manson, you know, how did that – I know, you know, from little acting that I've done, I know that when you get into a role, you kind of – you look at the world and what's going on around you a little bit differently than you would as yourself, as Ryan. You know, how easy was it for you to go into that place to be Charlie, and then how hard was it to come out of that when the cameras weren't on?
That's a very interesting question, and well, thank you for any comparison, even in the same sentence as the Heath Ledger as in The Dark Knight. You know, thank you. But it's you know, I felt like I knew Charlie well enough that it was something more or less I could kind of turn off, and except for when we're filming, you know, 15 days in a row. then it's all Charlie all the time. But the thing about finishing this film, it was very strange to me. Not strange, and it was kind of very cool too. I missed my friends. And
I think we all felt
with
that way.
I think everyone felt that way. Like it was this very strong. I don't know. Just this thing of missing my friends every day. You know. So that was a little tough to shake off. That stuck with me longer than any other production has, because I love shooting. I love to work every day if I can. But after every production, it's almost like a post-tour letdown. But yeah, this one was really like that.
Now, you know, when I had spoken to you earlier today on Facebook, you said you weren't exactly sure what was going to happen with distribution. You know, there was no concrete day for when there was a release. You know, what are you guys hoping for? Because the trend nowadays is, you know, I look at guys like you know, Billy Pond, who did Circus of the Dead. I look at Matt Farnsworth, who did The Orphan Killer. And it seems like a lot of independent films these days are going more of the self-distribution VOD releases. You know, what are you guys looking to do with this film? Are you hoping for a wider spread theatrical release? Are you hoping someone like Anchor Bay or Scream Factory picks it up? You know, what are you guys looking at in terms of all of that?
Anchor Bay, if you're listening, we would love you to pick us up.
I concur.
We've actually gotten a lot of offers. I was kind of overwhelmed by it at first. We've gotten a lot of offers for distribution. I respect the hell out of our fellow filmmakers who can go the self-distribution route. I think if you have the stamina and focus and drive and support online to market it in that way and to drive sales directly to you, that it's an absolutely incredible way to make sure that your film reaches an audience and that you pocket some of the money. Because a lot of times with smaller distributors, especially independent horror films, you can pretty much just guarantee to give your film away. And we're fairly lucky that we've avoided most of that thus far. This one we're not going to self-distribute, although I think it's unique enough in the Manson niche that people would seek it out. But we are going to be signing with an outside distributor for it. We just haven't yet. We did find a sales agent that we have been, we found a lot of them, but we found the one that we want to sign with. So that's going to be happening here in the next couple of weeks. We believe, don't quote me yet, but we believe that it will be going to the con markets to be shopped for foreign first before it comes to the U.S. And that's the plan with that. I really wanted it just to have a very solid DVD and VOD release, kind of like Dead Sea did. That's what we were kind of gearing for with this. However, our last few screenings have been overwhelmingly sold out, which is really, really incredible for our film, considering we have like $0 for marketing. People have been so great about supporting it. I cannot thank everyone enough. My cast, my crew, everyone who's been following it online. It makes a huge difference. So if the interest that way sustains, there's a small possibility of a limited theatrical run to coincide with it. But that can get very, very costly for an independent production if the support isn't there times 10. So we're going to watch and see, play a few more festivals, finish that out, and see if the interest stays where it's at.
Well, I feel like I would be remiss if I didn't say this, since since I know so many film distributors out there. You know, if my people from Scream Factory are listening, nudge, nudge, kick, kick. Go look at this movie, guys. I think you have some gold on your hands here if you pick this up.
That'll be awesome.
Yeah.
You know, you guys, of course, you know, I can't wait to see this in its entirety. You know, I'm really intrigued by it. And, of course, you guys have all gone on to do other stuff. But, like I said, I think there's something about this film that, you know, that this is going to be one of the pillar films when it comes to your resumes. You know, after coming off of a film like this, you know, how do you guys, you know, how did you feel about following it up with another film? You know, it's, like I said, from the trailers and everything, it's a very powerful film. You know, how do you get yourselves back up into another role after something like this?
Well, for me, I can say I actually have turned down most of the films that I got this year because I don't know, I think when you put yourself in something so deeply and you play people as well known as these people, it's a very different experience. And so now after Manson, I'm kind of taking on the quality over quantity approach with this, and just targeting very special films or very interesting or unique roles, something you can really kind of sink your teeth into. But it's a very good question, and it is kind of different. And I think, you know, especially the people on this line in particular playing such pivotal roles, everybody knows who these people are. It's something that will probably follow for the majority of their careers.
I would agree. Well, we're right up near the end here, but let me ask each one of you, you know, Devanny, what is the next big thing for you? You know, what is your next project? What do people need to be watching out for you?
Following up with this in the fall is going to be my next movie, Dwelling, which co-stars actually one of my Manson castmates, Erin Marie Hogan. It is an incredible paranormal story that I was really, really passionate about, and that'll be starting to premiere this fall. And then I also have a couple of other things scheduled for later in the year. I don't know if I can talk about it yet. I have, for the indie horror fans, yay. Those of you who really liked Where the Dead Go to Die, you really twisted, freaky people. The follow-up to that, yes, you.
Me.
Those of you who love that one, the follow-up to that with Jimmy Screamer Claus will be debuting finally, I think, too, and it's called When Blackbirds Fly. And from what I've seen so far, it is equally, if not more, twisted than the last one. That'll be kind of fun.
Ryan, how about for you?
You know, I've got quite a few things coming up. The one most recently, I actually just I shot on it a couple weekends ago. We shot it's like a proof of concept trailer that I did with Walter, who's one of he's the original Black Power Ranger, for this vampire love story action movie. So that one with Walter and Melanie Martin, and then I've also recently been there's a film coming up that I'm going to do with Mark Schumacher, and he has cast me with Christian Madsen and Zach Henry. A silent crime drama thriller about these brothers that do this bank heist. So I just talked to him a couple days ago about it. First that I learned of it. So that, and then I would love to make another film with Brandon and Devanny. We're always trying to work together. So
that's probably going to happen here. We're not going to talk about that yet, though. But I hope that you guys will have us back on later in the year so we can talk about that.
These damn phones in North Carolina aren't worth a damn. I'm sorry, Ryan.
That's all right.
So I didn't hear what you said. So you have the vampire film coming up?
Yep, that one. Which right now it's concept that it could either go. It could either be a movie or we shoot it as in episodic fashion, and then also a movie that I got added to. I just learned about it this week actually. It's called Drifters, and it's a silent film. It's a crime drama thriller with Christian Madsen and Zach Henry and Steve Wilcox, and it's about these brothers that do a bank heist on Halloween. So that one should be fun. And then I was also saying that working with Devanny and Brandon, we're always trying to put that together too. So
I like it. Julie, how about you?
Well, for me, actually, after this film, like you were talking about, to go on to something else, I've definitely been looking at the quality over quantity factor because it was such a great experience to work on this film. And I also really want to work with Brandon and Devanny again very soon, and Britt, and hopefully that's about. And I know, well, a little thing I do here and there, you can see me on General Hospital from time to time playing a nurse, so you look for me there. And, so hopefully more films to come as well. Definitely very excited to move on to the next thing.
And Britt, how about you? You there?
Hi, Britt.
Well, I guess Britt left. Well, guys, I want to thank you for being on. Devanny, I've wanted to have you on for years now, and I'm glad that you finally came on. Ryan, you too. Julie, thank you for coming on. Everyone that came on from the movie, you guys know you're always welcome on Horror Society. You're always welcome on the podcast. If you have any news about projects and films that you want put out, please just shoot me a line on Facebook. Let me know, and I will get it out there for you.
You guys are wonderful. We love you and Horror Society. You guys are so good to us all the time. Really appreciate it. When we get off here, I'm gonna work on setting you up with a private screener of Manson, so you can take a peek and do a review.
Definitely,
if you'd like to.
I will do a big write up for it. Hell, I'll even get that in Living Dead magazine for you guys, so it's in print as well.
That'd be great.
You are the best.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
I try anytime.
Thank you.
You guys, thank you so much again for being on, and I look forward to talking to all of you again here in the very near future.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Good night, guys.
Great.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night. And once again, ladies and gentlemen, we had on and spoke with actress, producer, and writer Devanny Pinn. We had Charles Manson himself, Ryan Kiser. We had Britt Griffith. We had Julie Rose, all from House of Manson. And as soon as I get that screener, I will be doing a review of the film. I'll even do the review here on the podcast as well. You'll be able to catch a review on horrorsociety.com and look for something in print sometime soon in Living Dead magazine. Coming up in a few minutes, we're going to go into our second Scream Digital Dismemberment Spotlight with Scream Factory's special edition Blu-ray release of Deep in the Darkness. But before that, we're going to go into our final Metal Blade Spotlight for the evening. We're going to do a double shot from the world podcast premiere music. From the band Entrails, the name of the CD is Obliteration. The name of the song is Skulls. welcome back. You just heard a double shot of world podcast exclusive music from the band Entrails and their upcoming CD Obliteration. You just heard the song The Grotesque, and before that, Skulls. If you want to find out more about Entrails, where to pick up their new CD, touring dates, and band merchandise, head on over to www.metalblade.com. But now, ladies and gentlemen, it is time, again, for some digital dismemberment.
Digital dismemberment.
And in our final digital dismemberment spotlight for the evening, we are going to be covering Scream Factory's special edition Blu-ray release of Deep in the Darkness, originally aired on Chiller. This spring, let's venture into Asheboro, a quaint small town in New Hampshire where its serenity and family-friendly settings are just pretenses for the ultimate terror. The harrowing suspense thriller, infused with deadly small-town secrets and folklore from Michael Lamo's celebrated novel Deep in the Darkness, leaps from the pages to the screen. On April 21st, Scream Factory releases Deep in the Darkness on Blu-ray and DVD. Based on the best-selling novel by Michael Lamo, Deep in the Darkness stars Sean Patrick Thomas of Save the Last Dance and Cruel Intentions, Kristen Bush from The Following, Dean Stockwell of Blue Velvet and Quantum Leap, Blanche Baker from 16 Candles, Anthony Del Negro from Dark Hall, which we reviewed recently, and Athena Grant. Directed by Colin Thays, Remains and Dead Souls, which we also reviewed. This eerily terrifying film takes your darkest fears and brings them home to the roost. A must-have for horror movie enthusiasts, collectors, and fans of mysteries and suspense. The Blu-ray has a suggested retail price of $24.97 and $14.93 on DVD. To give you a little bit of background info, Dr. Michael Cale thought leaving the chaotic lifestyle of New York City for the quiet, small town of Asheboro would bring his family closer together. Soon after arriving, however, he discovers the town's deepest secret, a terrifying and controlling race of creatures that lives in the darkness in the woods behind his home. This eerily terrifying film takes your darkest fears and brings them home to roost. Once again, I think Scream Factory has hit on something by picking up a film that was on Chiller. Another independent film that has extremely high production values, great makeup effects, highly capable acting and directing. You know, the atmosphere in this film is stunning. It's just so much fun to watch. You know, Dr. Michael Kill and his wife and daughter move to this rural town, and he takes over as the town doctor. But even as he first gets there, he notices that things seem to be a little bit strange and different. It's a modern town, but at the same time, it's not. You know, there's no cable television. Internet access never seems to work. You know, and the townsfolk seem friendly and aloof all at the same time. You know, there's a very creepy factor, almost like it's a one of us mentality. So the good doctor and his wife decide when they move there that now is the time to have another child. And as the movie goes on, Michael meets different people in the town, and, you know, one of the gentlemen recommends that he does an animal sacrifice, but doesn't really want to go into the details of anything other than a race of wild people that inhabit the woods. And at first, Michael seems to think it's a little bit more of an urban legend, or that maybe his leg is being pulled, but weird things start happening around the town. In particular, there's a young blonde woman who kind of comes on to the doctor, but at the same time is asking him for help, like he's the only one that can protect her. And later on in the film, he shows up at her house, appearing to be partially gutted, is what it looks like, and her body disappears. You know, he tries to go and get the sheriff, tries to convince the sheriff that something's going on. And nobody seems to believe him. And then the young lady is found, apparently the result of a hit-and-run accident. And there's another young man in town who is trying to tell him what's going on, that there's something odd going on. And we're back. I apologize. We're having problems with the phones out here in North Carolina. Phones keep dropping off due to some strange circumstance. But like I was saying, the doctor, something strange is going on between he and his wife. She becomes very despondent, like she's hiding something. And it's later on revealed that the town midwife is involved with all of this, and these creatures come out of the woods, very creepy creatures, very, very primal, and they take them back. They take the doctor back to their lair to help with their sick, and they kind of take him whenever they need his help with something, and it's very creepy. You almost wonder if they're supernatural, if they're feral humans. It never comes right out and says what they are. And towards the end, the doctor tries to get his family and one of the other townspeople out of the town, but he's stopped at every chance by the sheriff and other people in the town. And there's a very shocking twist all the way at the end of the movie, and I don't want to give away that particular twist. As an overall very entertaining movie, again, very high production qualities, everything about the film is very enjoyable. I would give the film a 3.5 out of 5 stars. Scream Factory includes the little chiller things about meet the director, meet the cast, and you have the TV spots and the trailers. Would have loved to have seen a little bit more in terms of special editions and features. Overall, I would give the disc about a 6.5, 7 out of 10. Again, it's very, very beautifully done. There is alternative artwork depending on what you want. I prefer the outside artwork with all the eyes. Definitely recommend checking it out. I would tell you to head on over to shoutfactory.com to order your copy of the film. You should be able to go into your local big box retailer and pick it up, and it should also be available on Amazon.com. I want to say thank you to all of our guests that were on this evening: Devanny Pinn, Ryan Kiser, Britt Griffith, Julie Rose. Max Wassa tried to join us this evening. Unfortunately, she could not get through on the phone. I had so many people on, but we will definitely have Max on again just to see how she's doing, to talk about her film projects and everything that is going on. I want to say thank you to our friends at Scream Factory for sending us our copy of Deep in the Darkness. I want to say thank you to Scarlet Fry for sending us our review copy of Voices from the Grave. And I want to say thank you to our friends at Metal Blade Records for sending us our music tonight, the band Entrails and their upcoming CD, Obliteration. Next week, we are going to have the writers and the editor of Living Dead magazine on to talk about the magazine and the upcoming convention in Portland. So until next week, ladies and gentlemen, this is the Dead Man from Horror Society and Living Dead magazine, telling you all to rest in peace.